All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. And today we're going to tackle something that's been causing a lot of buzz, no pun intended, in the EV world.
Mhm.
Battery swapping.
Mhm.
Is it the future? Is it a fad? We're going to unpack all of that
I'm
today.
excited to get into it.
We've got a ton of research, a bunch of articles, and some of this stuff is pretty wild.
Oh, yeah.
Like, get this, some of this is saying that swapping out a battery could be faster than filling up your tank at a gas station.
That's right.
Which honestly, like my brain almost can't even process that yet, but we'll see if it's all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So first, can you kind of set the stage for people who might not be totally familiar with battery swapping? Like, what is it exactly?
Well, you can think of it like this. It's basically a pit stop, but for your electric car.
Mm.
Instead of plugging in, you pull into a station, they take out your depleted battery, and in like 5 minutes, boom, you're back on the road with a fully charged one.
So you're saying you're in and out in 5 minutes?
Yes, sometimes even faster, depending on the system they're using. See, that's what I mean. Like, that is insane to me. So obviously, the convenience factor is a huge plus, right?
Absolutely. I mean, no more hunting for chargers, no more range anxiety, especially for people who can't charge at home or at work.
Right. I live in an apartment building. I can't charge at home.
Exactly. So this would be a game changer for people like you.
So we've got convenience. But what are some of the other advantages?
Well, something that might surprise people is that swapping can actually be better for your battery's lifespan.
I really?
Yeah. See, all that fast charging we do now, that can wear down the battery over time. But with swapping, those stations can charge the batteries more slowly, which is actually healthier for them.
So it's like slow and steady wins the race.
Pretty much. Plus, it could save you money in the long run because you won't have to replace your battery as often.
That makes sense. And I read something about swapping being beneficial for the power grid, too.
That's right. It's a pretty cool concept, actually. Think of those swap stations like giant batteries themselves.
They can soak up energy when it's plentiful, like when the sun is shining or the wind is blowing, and then release it back to the grid when demand is high.
So they're like little energy banks.
Exactly. And that can help smooth out those peaks and valleys in energy demand, which makes renewable energy sources even more viable.
So it's convenient, good for your battery, and could help us go green. That's a lot of wins.
It is.
But I'm guessing it's not all sunshine and roses, right? What are some of the challenges?
Well, the biggest hurdle is infrastructure.
Okay.
I mean, can you imagine trying to build out a network of these swap stations across the entire country? The cost would be astronomical.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that.
And then there's a question of who pays for it, right? Because those costs are inevitably going to get passed down to the consumer.
True. And also, I think a lot of people are attached to the idea of owning their car's battery.
Absolutely.
Like, are people going to be comfortable with getting what's essentially a used battery at a swap station?
That's a big question mark. There's definitely a trust factor involved. And on top of that, you've got the issue of compatibility.
Right, because not all EV batteries are created equal, are they?
No, they're not. There are different sizes, different connection types. It's a real mess.
So how would swapping even work with all these different EVs on the road?
That's what some companies are trying to figure out. Like Ample, they're a US startup that's developed this really cool modular battery system.
I read a bit about them.
It's like Lego blocks for batteries.
What?
Seriously, they can adjust the size and configuration of the battery pack to fit different cars.
That's amazing.
And get this, their swap stations are fully automated, like robots are doing the swapping.
Robots. Okay, now that's what I'm talking about. But I understand there are companies already doing battery swaps, right? Not just planning, but actually doing them.
No, absolutely. NIO, a Chinese EV maker, has a pretty extensive swap network in China already, and they're expanding to Europe.
I've heard of them.
They swap out the entire battery pack, and they even offer a subscription service.
So it's like instead of buying a battery, you just pay a monthly fee.
Exactly. Like a Netflix subscription, but for your car's energy.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about battery degradation, resale value, any of that.
So we've got Ample with their robot Lego batteries and NIO with their battery subscription service. It seems like a lot of companies are trying to find a way to make this work. But what really blew my mind was reading about the big energy companies getting involved.
Oh, yeah.
Shell, Repsol, even EDOs, they're all exploring battery swapping. That's got to tell you something.
It definitely does. I mean, these are the giants of the energy industry, and if they're seeing the potential in battery swapping, it's a sign that this could be more than just a niche idea.
Right. I mean, these guys know a thing or two about energy, so.
Exactly.
So based on the research, what's the outlook? Like, is battery swapping going to take over the world?
Well, the research suggests that we're likely to see growth globally, particularly in Asia and Europe, where there's a lot of government support for EVs and alternative energy. But the US is a different story.
How so?
Well, for one thing, we have a much larger and more spread out population, which makes building out the infrastructure even more challenging.
Right.
And then there's the whole consumer mindset thing. Americans love their cars, they love owning things.
Yeah, we do.
So getting people comfortable with the idea of sharing batteries or using a subscription service, that could be a tough sell.
Especially since EVs are already expensive as it is.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the issue of whether car manufacturers themselves will get on board.
Because right now it seems like they're all in on fast charging.
Yeah, that's their focus. So if battery swapping is going to really take off, it'll likely be driven by commercial fleets first.
Makes sense, like delivery trucks, taxis, those kinds of things.
Exactly. Time is money for them, so minimizing downtime with a quick battery swap is really appealing.
So it sounds like there are a lot of factors at play here. It'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. So much to think about, but now I want to turn it over to you, the listener. What do you think? Would you embrace battery swapping? Is it all about the price for you, the convenience? Or is there something else entirely that would sway you one way or the other? Let us know. And thank you for joining us for another deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure.
It's been fun.
I'll see you next time.
See you later.